This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode 111, entitled Navigating Grief with Brittni Schroeder. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack, and I'm a certified faith-based life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want you to know that no matter your season or your circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life, and I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. I want to remind you that if you are struggling with the unique challenges that come with being in the mid-season of life, I would love to be your coach. And again, whether it's the relationship that you have with yourself or your spouse, your adult children, your coworker, or your best friend, I invite you to schedule a free clarity conversation with me to learn more about how to create desired change in your life and what it looks like to work with me. Just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and click on the Work With Me tab at the top of the page. You can find the link in the show notes as well. We can chat, and I can tell you all the different ways that we can work together. Now on to this week's episode. All right, I am here with my good friend, Brittni Schroeder, and I would like you to introduce yourself, Brittni. Just tell people who you are, where you're from. Yeah.
My name is Brittni Schroeder, and I am a business and marketing coach. I'm from Delta, Utah, but I just recently moved back to Utah, but I have been gone for 20 years. I lived in Michigan, I lived in Texas, and now I'm back home. So I'm happy to be home. But yeah, I'm a business and marketing coach. I've been an entrepreneur for many years, 15 years or so, and more than that, longer than that, probably 20. But I also, was a photographer, and then I do business and marketing coaching. I've been involved in nonprofit work for many years, 15 plus years as well. And I have my own nonprofit that I started in 2017. So I have 2 kids. I have one son that is in Brazil on a mission, and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I'm in Lehi, Utah right now. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
I love it. So Brittni and I have crossed paths in the coaching world. Like she said, she's a business and marketing coach, and she's actually been my coach to help me my business, which I've been so grateful for. It's helped me in so many ways. But I have Brittni on today in a little different role. She's actually a guest on my podcast, and we're not necessarily going to be talking about business, maybe a little. Anyway, Brittni went to the same school as I did, the life coach school, and was certified as a life coach. And so I always like to ask people when they come on the podcast, what's the story? Why did you choose to become a life coach? And what have you learned from that journey? So
okay, so kind of a little bit about my story. I had to get my tissues.
Yeah, you got to get
those
tissues.
weeks.
Yes.
But I think I've always been into like personal development, and self-help books are like my jam. I love all that stuff. And how I found coaching is, my story kind of starts that in 2017, I lost my son. My 14-year-old son passed away. And at the time I was a high school senior photographer, and I was always working with like teenagers. Like I love teenagers. And after my son passed away, we started a nonprofit, and I was super involved with kids. And the nonprofit is called the Compassion Club. And we started these clubs we were in El Paso, Texas at the time. And we started these clubs I had a kid in each school, elementary, middle, and high school. And these clubs were ultimately like teaching how to serve and kindness and compassion and just like all the values. then I had all these kids that were grieving the loss of my son, and they were coming to my house, and I was just loving them, and we were serving and doing all this. And somebody said to me, "You should be a life coach. You just help so many people. You should be a life coach." And at the time I thought, what is a life coach? And I'm like, that's so hokey. Like bring out the crystals, like, and the yoga mats, like, what is it? And at the time, somebody had sent me Brooke Castillo's podcast and said, "Oh, you should listen to this podcast. She's a life coach." And so that's was my first like introduction to life coaching. And I started listening to her podcasts, and this was in 2017. And I was immediately just, wow, like I love this stuff. Like this is so intriguing to me. This is my jam. Like this is like self-help. And I binged like all of her podcasts. Like I listened to everything that she had. And then of course you get, she's a business owner too. So of course I appreciate the marketing. And so then she tells you, become a life coach. And I was like, yes, like I want to do this. And I mean, as somebody who does business marketing, I appreciate she has really marketed it well. And so then I think it was the very next year, 2018, I believe, that I got certified as a life coach. And, it's an investment. It definitely like is a big investment, but it changed my life. Like it absolutely changed my life. And the tools that I don't currently life coach, it's like anything, like when you're with your education, I use it every single day of my life. And it changed every single relationship in my life. It changed the way I looked at things. It brought me so much peace. And I look back at that time and, I was grieving. Like I'm still grieving. It's 7 years later. I'm still grieving. And I use those tools every single day. I use those tools. Like I got through my grief because I had the tools. I had the tools to do it. The tools that helped me with understanding my relationships, expectations, like what to expect from people, boundaries, like all of the things. And I think it's one of those things, and Jill, you can attest to this. It's one of those things like you don't know because you don't know what you're missing. And so, it really transformed my life, and every single relationship that I had, it gave me a whole new perspective. And I definitely feel like that it helped me, like my relationships are healthier. I am healthier and happier. I think one of the things that I did, and it's hard to not do this. And one of the things that we learn in life coaching is you can't change the past, and we're giving you tools to move forward. But I think when you get those tools, you look back at your past and you're like, man, my life would have been different if I would have had these tools. And I think I lived a lot of my young adult life feeling so disappointed in, like relationships, in friendships, in relationships with my family, just these different things in my life. And I look back and I think, gosh, I wasted so much time and energy, like being disappointed, but I think it was one of those things that like truly like transformed my life. And, like I'm so grateful. Like it really was the best investment that I have ever made for myself is life coaching, getting those tools.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think that, I left really thinking like, if I don't make a dime, I'm okay. I want to make a dime. Yeah. I'm not going to lie, but if I don't, I'm a better person, or I'm showing up as a better person, as the person I want to be, because I've learned how to. And one of the things you said that I thought was really interesting, like just this idea of perspective. I've been thinking a lot about that. And it's like, as I've been working with people, it's this context filter that we have, and we don't know that we have it. The way we see life, the lens through which we view everything, is affected by our past relationships, the things that have happened to us, our religious beliefs, our political beliefs, like all the things we can think of that we've experienced in our life affect the way we view life. And we don't realize that when we're looking through that lens. It takes effort to step back and start pulling those things out of that filter and go, oh yeah, I don't need to look at life through this lens anymore. I can shift this. I can change this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm curious your thoughts on this too, but one of the things that one of the very first principles that we learn is perspective, is what stories are we creating, and for me, I feel like I've always been pretty like open-minded. Like I am a big self-reflector. Like, I joke that I have this tribe of people, these different friends, and I will, I'll call them and I'm all worked up about something, and I'm like, hey, like, tell me, am I wrong? Can I not see something here? Like, so I feel like that I am like, whether it's innate or it's something I've developed, but I do feel like I am a big like self-reflector. But I do think when you learn these tools of perspective and the stories that we create in our head, I do really feel like it helps you to be open-minded, to where you're like, you question yourself. And I think that's a really healthy thing, where it's like, you say to yourself, am I creating a story, or am I being sensitive? Or am I creating a story? But, I also think kind of, bringing it back to even like my nonprofit, it's called the Compassion Club. But I really think that when you have these tools and you implement them and you're living them, I really think that it helps you to be a more compassionate person, because we then understand that different people have different perspectives. And, as far as, my grieving, when I am still, I guess I'll grieve for the rest of my life, but even like my grieving process, it helps me to not be offended. It's helped me to understand that not everybody is like me. And, not everybody has the same perspective. We all view things through a different lens. And it's helped me to be more compassionate and understanding of people, because I have these tools that I've learned and that I practice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Has it helped you to be more open-minded? So. Yeah, definitely. Because when you start getting that self-reflection, you're like, oh, this might not be how they're seeing it, or what's another way I could look at this, right? What feels better? Like, I think that when you realize you have that lens and that everybody's lens is unique, it does allow us to hold space for different opinions, right? Because I think for so many of us, we go through life thinking we all have the same lens, right? But then when we start really digging intentionally and looking at the way we're viewing it, and that maybe somebody would view it differently, it just creates more space for all of us and more compassion. Yeah, I love that. So is that like, I'd love to know, like, what led you to create your nonprofit? I know it was the passing of your son, but like, is there a moment where you're like, this is what I got to do? This is important, or like, what led you there?
Yeah. So kind of the story behind that is, my son had passed away, and people started, people want to help, they want to do something, and people started sending flowers and plants and all this stuff to my house. And I'm also I'm a minimalist, I'm very practical, and I'm like, this is such a waste of money. I didn't even, when I was like married to my husband, he would bring me flowers and I'd say like, oh, that's a waste of money. Don't spend money on flowers. You know what I mean? And so all these flowers and plants were coming to my house. And I said to my friends, I said, I don't want this. I don't want people. This is a waste of money. Like, don't spend money on this. And my son, his name is Gage, and he was super intelligent, very intelligent and gifted in every subject. And he wanted to be a doctor, and he told everybody he was going to be a doctor. And so my friend said, what if we started a scholarship? And if people, because people do want to help, they want to do something. And they said, what if we start a scholarship in his name and we start a GoFundMe? And I'm like, yeah. And we call it the Gage Schroeder Compassion Scholarship. This incredible kid. And he talked to everybody. And I was actually sharing the story the other day that when your kids are younger, you often apologize for them because they're bothering people. And, you know, I when he was younger, I'd apologize because he just talks to everybody. He was just such a talker. And it ended up being like such a blessing in so many people's lives because he just talked to everybody. He was just so kind. And so we started the scholarship fund, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Like, what am I going to do with all this money, you know? And I met with a lady. Her name is, oh, I can't think of her name. I'm drawing a blank right now, but she had a son pass away. He was snow skiing and he had a head injury, and his name was Cindy Abood. Her name was Cindy. And she was in El Paso, and she has this huge nonprofit. And I met with her, and she told me her story. And she said, she shared a story that kind of something similar happened to her. And her son went to a school where they wore uniforms, and she had said to her son once, oh, don't you love it that you have to wear uniforms because you can't tell who has money and who doesn't? And her son, Braden, said to her, until you look at their shoes and you can see that they don't have money. And so she started a nonprofit, and they do a big 5K every year. And then they take the money and they find a low income school, and they donate and give every single kid in this low income school 2 pairs of socks and a pair of shoes. And so she shared that story with me, and she said, it will come to you what you're supposed to do this. He will tell you what he wants you to do with it. He'll tell you what to do. And so as I was grieving, and we were seeing these kids, and they just, like, there was a knock on the door, and then another, and then another, and another, and these kids would come to our house, and they wanted peace. They wanted, like, to know that we were okay. And our house was always a place where we always had kids. And so, you know, we came up with this idea, like, let's start a club. And I've always been huge into service. Like, my boys, I was doing Meals on Wheels when I was pregnant with one and pushing the other in a stroller. And I've always been big on just serving others. And I love to serve. And, you know, there's a quote by Tony Robbins. It says something to the effect of, we only suffer when we think of ourselves. And I knew that I had to teach these kids to serve others. That is how you heal. That's how you overcome, like, adversity, is by helping others. And so we started these clubs. So I met with the school district and the principals, and they were all very supportive. It's such a great community. And so we started these compassion clubs. And then after that, we formed a nonprofit, a 501c, and it was the labor of love. But over a year of time, we created a curriculum, and the curriculum is just values. I kind of joke, for those who are LDS, that it's like family home evening for schools, but it teaches values. So it has all these ideas of service projects and ideas to random acts of kindness and printables and all of those things. And so we created that, and we have a curriculum, and we sell curriculum to schools and other supportive, then we email them new ideas and printables and all those things. And the money that we get from the sales of the curriculum and and then we do a memorial wrestling tournament for my son, we give scholarships. And so since 2017, we've given close to $70,000 in scholarships since 2017. Wow. So that is kind of, that's how it started. Wow. And,
beautiful.
we have clubs all over the US. We have several clubs. I I was busier at it before COVID, but then I'd speak at schools. I actually met with a school in South Jordan, Utah last week that wants to start a club, and and so it's just, yeah, that's
Beautiful.
kind of how it came to be. So
Yeah.
it's been very healing, and it's been, I get lots of messages from kids and how it's made an impact in their life, and that's, it helps them. So
Yeah.
that's how
I
it
love
started.
that. That was going to be my next question is, um, how have you seen it help you heal? What is it about it that has helped you in the healing
I,
process?
I think it's just, I think it goes back to just what Tony Robbins said, is like, we only suffer when we think of ourselves. And, even I find myself when I'm struggling, even now, it's like, this, I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but we're recording and it's May. And um, next week it's going to be the anniversary of his death. And I've just like, it's like muscle memory, like you just feel this time of year and it brings you back to just like that time. And, so I've been like a lot of tears, and I just, every time I like feel the sadness, I like reach out to somebody who I know is like struggling, like, and it does, like, it just brings me so much peace, like, just to help like one person, just to check in on somebody, or just to, and so I think it's just, his legacy living on. We do a memorial wrestling tournament every year in El Paso, Texas. And it's just, every year, because it's like so much work, and I'm doing it pretty much by myself. And every year I'm like, okay, this is the last year I'm doing it. And every year, like, I have these kids come up to me and just say, like, this is my favorite tournament. Like, I love this. It's so good. We give at the wrestling tournament, we give 3 awards. And it's called the Gage Schroeder Courage Award. And it's to not the best wrestler, but it's the kid who has like overcome hardships and has a positive attitude and makes an impact. And we give one to a boy, one to a girl, and then we have a coach award because he had an amazing coach that was just so kind and just a great guy. And we give it a compassionate coach award too. And there was a year, I remember this one specific year, where, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm like such a
Oh,
mess.
let the tears
There
flow,
was
my
this
friend.
there was this one specific year where the boy the boy that we gave it to, his mom had OD'd on drugs and died. And the girl, her dad had died of COVID. And it was just like, we share our story about Gage, and then when we give the awards, and there was not a dry eye in that entire, like, the entire like gym. And it just, and I still get messages. I still get, people who reach out who say like, that made such an impact on my life. Like, when I was going through such a hard time, and like, I looked forward to Compassion Club, or, so I think those are the things that like really, they help me to heal, because I feel like it's like his legacy. And, when you lose a child, the one thing that you like worry about is you don't want people to forget about your kid. And so it just has been healing to like be able to share his story and really just help his legacy live on through like kindness and compassion. So because that's who he was.
Mhm.
So it's been like so healing. So just so healing to like to serve and to be able to help other people,
Mhm. Yeah, I was talking
So
to a friend not that long ago, and she's had her own struggles. She's lost a child and is divorced, and um other children going through hard things, right? Just life is no respecter of persons. We all
Mhm.
have struggle,
And
but we were
yep.
talking about this one day, and she talked about this idea of healing. And I thought it was so beautiful. You know, she's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so she was at the temple where we go to worship, and she had this thought come to her mind about healing. And the impression she got was healing doesn't mean we'll be exactly the same,
Yeah.
right? Like we aren't going to get that child back. We're not going to get
Yeah.
certain things back in this life, but
Yeah.
we can move forward in the healing. We become healed. We
Yeah.
become more of a person we want to be through this experience. Anyway, I just thought it was beautiful because I
Yeah.
think sometimes we expect healing. We just want it all to go back and
Yeah.
can't. But the
Oh yeah. It
process,
changes you.
it
Yeah.
changes you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like a wound where
Yeah.
if you get a cut or something, a deep cut, like there's going to be a scar. Like it's never going to be the same. There's always going to be a scar, but you're stronger. And I
Mm,
think too, one of the things that I think of is, I didn't get a choice to lose my son,
yeah.
but I have a choice every day. Like, do I want to be bitter or do I want to be better? And we have these choices. And I also recognize like that I have been given gifts of like resilience and gratitude. And, I do recognize like that I have gifts, and, I have a faith that I couldn't do it without faith. I recognize like God's hand in my life, like over and over and over. Like he has never left my side, and he's given me gifts. So it does. It definitely changes you. And the healing process isn't always necessarily like the prettiest thing, but you move forward and you get through it.
Yeah.
So it takes
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love that you took your grief and used it to spread compassion, right? And
Yeah.
I think that grief does that. Like whatever our grief looks like or what we're grieving over, I think we all experience some kind of grief, but it
Yeah.
it can, like you said, I think that's a vehicle of compassion and openness. When we go through
Yeah.
something hard, we can see other people's suffering a little easier, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Walk
Well,
that.
and even like tying it back to what you do, like you're a seasons coach, where it's like we have these different seasons in our life. And I didn't share this part of my story, but I lost a child at birth. Like I had a stillborn, 37 weeks full term. And when I was a kid, I was 22. And I remember thinking, when am I going to be myself again? I was so sad I mean, it doesn't compare to losing my 14-year-old son, but I remember thinking, like, when am I going to be myself again? And I remember it was about like after the first year where I started to like, okay, I'm myself again. Like I'm feeling myself again. And I remember years later, like at the time I was 22, I didn't know anybody who had a stillborn. I knew people who had miscarriage, but not a stillborn. And so then I remember like over the next few years, like I had strength that I could comfort like other women who had stillborns because I had gone through that. And it gives you, it gives you compassion. I have people all the time. I had a high school senior who I took her pictures 10 years ago, and she within the last year lost her mom and dad. And she sent me a message that said, I this hits so different now. Like I get it now. I didn't understand, and now I get it. I get, you have been talking about grief, and now I understand it. And sometimes I think like, like we have to go through these different seasons. And when at some point we gain the strength, we heal, we get that scar where it's never the same, but we have the strength, and now we can comfort somebody else. Like
Yeah.
I currently have two people that I know in my life right now that both lost children this year. And I get to be that hope for them. I get to tell them it gets better. It gets better. Like, you're going to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
it gets better. And I had that. I had a friend who lost a child, and going back to the bitter or better, I had people who lost children and came up to me and were like, it's horrible, it's hell, like, and then I had a friend that was like, it's okay, you're going to be okay, you will find happiness again, you will get through this. And I made the choice, like, I'm going to be like her. When I have the strength, I'm going to be like that. That's how I'm going to be. And that's what I do. There's hope. Like, you're going to be okay. Like, you will get through this. It gets better. I promise. You're not going to always feel this way. And so I think that, we go through these seasons of life where, hopefully we gain the strength and we use those experiences to gain empathy, and we use those experiences to comfort other people. My son, who is on a mission for a church in Brazil, we were talking about this the other day, where he said, we're so blessed. I mean, he's getting humbled. We're so blessed. We're so blessed. And I was saying, like, God gives us these blessings, these privileges, whatever you want to call them. But if we don't use them to help other people, it's a waste. It's disappointing. Like, we have to use the things that we have, like, to, like, help other people rise, help other people, give them hope.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think it's just that power of connection, right? Because um that we're wired for connection, and we're all going to go through hard stuff. And if we can use those to connect with others, we all benefit, right?
yeah, for
All
sure.
tides. What's that quote? You've said it before. All
Rising
tides.
tides lifts all ships.
Yeah. And if we can be that in someone's life, and again, to come back to kind of coaching and how that's helped you in your journey, in this journey, continued journey,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that for me, that's probably the biggest thing. Is it's helped me view life through the lens that we've been talking about. It's that
Yeah. Yeah.
opening, it's being aware of other people, and deciding on purpose the person I want to be
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
relationship, in that situation, whatever it is, right? Like, that openness actually allows intention. And I
Yeah.
just, a
Yeah.
life lived with intention is beautiful. And a life lived
Hmm.
in reaction,
Yeah.
right? Like, that is
Yeah. Yeah.
misery.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and the thing is, to with life coaching, if you are struggling with anything in your life, I mean, really anything. And here's the caveat, though, with coaching, and I will say this: if you are open to change, if you are willing to open yourself up to work on things, life coaching will change your life, will change your life in ways that you cannot even imagine. Like, it is transformative. And so, but the caveat is, you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to, I am ready. I'm ready to feel different. And what can I do? I mean, because it really is a lot of, you have to do the work, you have to be open to changing, but it will change your life. It's honestly the best investment that I have ever made in my life. And it has changed me in just so many amazing ways.
Yeah.
So
Because isn't that beautiful? Because you just shared with us really hard things, really hard
yeah,
things that you
yeah,
did not have a choice in.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I loved how you said that. Like, I decided I have a choice. Am I bitter
Hmm.
or am I better? And I just think that's such a beautiful choice. But yeah, it's an individual choice. And I think too, I would add, it starts small. And one of the first small steps is to build that relationship with yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
You've got to start there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it ripples out, right? It just flows out into our other relationships. But if we don't
Hmm.
start
Yeah,
with
for sure.
ourselves, It just doesn't work the same.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that you would love to leave with people? Like this is probably going to come out around Mother's Day and
Yeah.
probably like the week after. So not very far.
Yeah.
But if,
Yeah.
there's going to be moms that are questioning some things or feeling some things, or Mother's Day isn't always beautiful to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or navigating with something. What could you leave them? What could you leave them that helps them in this moment today?
I mean, I think one of the things, like the feedback that I have gotten, by sharing my story is, just gratitude. I think that it's hard being a mom. It's the hardest but most rewarding thing that we do. And so I think that, just having gratitude, like I feel so blessed that I am a mother. Like, I feel like it is the greatest gift ever. And, I'm lucky, I'm blessed. I never went through the like angry at God stage when I lost my son, but I just felt so blessed that I was chosen to be his mother. And I feel so blessed that I was given almost 15 years to be his mother. And so I think it's just, it's hard. We have these expectations. It's hard being a mom. It really is, like, it's tough. But I think just, find a place to come from gratitude where, I get to be a mother, not I have to be a mother. I get to do this, not I have to. But I think it's just like, looking for gratitude in all things has
Mm.
really, helped me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that gratitude helps us appreciate what we have, whatever it looks like, even those things we can't control, we can still have gratitude in, right?
Yeah.
We may have a
Yeah.
relationship with an adult child or something that doesn't look the way we thought it would, right? But we can still find gratitude somewhere in there,
Yeah,
somewhere in
for
there.
sure. For
And
sure.
when we do, again, I think that helps us open our perspective just a little and maybe see where that person's coming from
Yeah.
a little bit better. Yeah. So I love that. Gratitude really is a foundational thing, I think, in so many parts of our life. If we can tap into that. Well, Brittni, thank you so much for coming on. I know this isn't easy where it's so close to your heart and the time.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for having me. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah. I just know that somebody needs to hear this, that they're going to be okay. They're going to be
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you. If people want to learn more about you and what you do, I will put the links in the show notes too.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but anyway, Brittni has been a dear friend and has helped me in my coaching business. And I just really am amazed by the strength and resilience that you have and the good that you put out.
Sweet.
So thank you.
Well, you are awesome. I've loved I'm equally like benefited from our relationship here. So
Wow. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story.
thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about me or how to work with me, just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and have a joyful week.